There are moments that disappear while we are still inside them. A candle bending in slow surrender, wax pulling silently at its base. A child laughing in a kitchen filled with afternoon light, unaware that one day that kitchen will belong to memory alone. A voice that sounds ordinary today and sacred tomorrow. We live inside time, but we do not trust it. Time is indifferent. It does not negotiate. It does not pause when we ask it to. It moves forward. So we built instruments to resist it. Clocks, calendars, diaries, monuments carved into stone, and once a small mechanical box that promised something radical. You can save this moment. Tonight, we are not simply telling the story of a company. We are telling the story of how humanity industrialized memory, how chemistry became nostalgia, how fear became a business model, how success became a trap, and how the company that taught us to remember nearly forgot how to survive. Dim the lights. Let your eyes adjust. The dark remembers. Welcome to Darkroom Diaries. Tonight, Kodak. George Washington Eastman was born on July 12, 1854, in Waterville, New York. His father, George Eastman Sr., was ambitious, the founder of the Eastman Commercial College, an institution designed to train young Americans in practical business skills for an industrializing nation. It was modern, forward-looking, disciplined, but fragile. In 1862, when George was 7 years old, his father died unexpectedly. The college faltered. Revenue dried up. The promise of stability evaporated. His mother, Maria Eastman, did what many resilient women of that era did, quietly and without applause. She adapted. She rented rooms in their home. Strangers moved into the house. They shared meals. They shared walls. They shared space where security once lived. Young George absorbed this silently. Security is conditional. Comfort is temporary. Control must be built. He left school at 14 to help support the family. He worked first as an office boy in an insurance company. Later, as a bookkeeper at Rochester Savings Bank. He developed habits that would follow him for life. Meticulous accounting, cost discipline, operational precision. He studied margins obsessively. He calculated risks conservatively. He believed in systems, not because he loved bureaucracy, but because he feared instability. Kodak begins here. Not with photography. It began with a child who never wanted to feel collapse again. In the 1870s, photography was not accessible. It was a ritual of chemistry. The dominant method was the wet collodion process. To take a photograph, one needed heavy glass plates, a coating of light-sensitive collodion solution, a bath of silver nitrate to activate it, a portable darkroom tent. The process was unforgiving. The plate had to remain wet. If the chemical layer dried before development, the image was lost. Exposure times lasted several seconds. Subjects had to remain perfectly still. Smiles were rare, not because people were serious, but because holding a smile for 10 seconds was physically painful. Photography belonged to professionals, to chemists, to those wealthy enough to pay for inconvenience. Then came a small moment that changed history. George planned a vacation to Santo Domingo. A colleague suggested bringing a camera. He walked into a photography supply shop. He saw the weight of the process, the fragility of the glass, the smell of chemicals, the impracticality of transporting a dark room. He bought the equipment anyway, and then canceled the trip. The equipment was too large, the process too inefficient. But inefficiency was not something George accepted easily. If something was cumbersome, it could be simplified. If something was exclusive, it could be democratized. And so he began experimenting. At night, after finishing his job at the bank, George returned home and transformed his mother's kitchen table into a laboratory. Chemistry manuals open, glass plates arranged carefully, bottles labeled in neat handwriting. Silver nitrate, gelatin, emulsions, failure after failure. But he was not discouraged. He was analytical. He studied dry plate technology, a newer method allowing pre-prepared plates to replace the wet collodion process. He wanted to remove fragility, remove urgency, remove intimidation. In 1880, Eastman patented a mechanical plate coating device. It automated the process of evenly applying light-sensitive emulsion to plates. Consistency replaced guesswork. He also developed a device that allowed photographers to load plates in a dark room, not total darkness. This improved safety and reliability. Commercially modest, technically foundational. Then, in 1884, came the true breakthrough: flexible roll film, a light-sensitive strip that could be wound inside a compact camera. No glass plates, no heavy transport, no fragile storage. To support this innovation, Eastman refined chemical coatings that yielded clear, sharp images at lower cost. He had removed the most intimidating part of photography: glass. The consumer would never again handle breakable plates. Then, in 1889, came something bigger: transparent celluloid film. Durable, flexible, sequential. This invention went beyond still photography. Thomas Edison relied on it for early motion picture experiments. The Lumiere brothers relied on it for cinematic projection. Hollywood, the motion picture industry itself, was built on Eastman's chemical innovation. Cinema was not born in Los Angeles. It was born in a kitchen laboratory in Rochester. The name Kodak. It did not exist before George Eastman invented it. He liked the letter K. He said it felt strong, incisive, mechanical. He wanted a name that could not be mispronounced in any language, a word with no previous meaning. Because a word with no history can be filled with one. He tested combinations obsessively: short, sharp, symmetrical, Kodak, two hard consonants, memorable, industrial. He registered it as a trademark in 1888, at a time when branding was still primitive. George understood something decades before marketing theory formalized it. If you create a word, you control its meaning. And soon, Kodak did not mean a company. It meant photography. The camera was never the real product. It was the entry point. George Eastman did not simply build a camera company. He built a closed-loop system. And that system was more radical than the razor and blade model most people describe. Because in the beginning, customers did not buy film separately. They bought a box, a sealed box. In 1888, when the first Kodak camera launched, it came preloaded with enough roll film for 100 exposures. The customer could not remove the film, could not develop it, could not reload it. When all 100 photographs were taken, something extraordinary happened. You did not open the camera. You did not extract the roll. You mailed the entire camera back to Kodak. The whole box, wooden body, mechanism, everything. Kodak received it in Rochester, in their own centralized laboratories. Technicians removed the film, developed the negatives, printed the photographs, reloaded the camera with fresh film, and mailed it back to you. You press the button, we do the rest. But that slogan was not marketing poetry, it was operational architecture. Kodak had removed every intimidating step. No glass plates, No chemicals, no darkroom, no technical knowledge, not even film handling. The consumer never saw silver nitrate, never smelled developer, never risked ruining a plate. Eastman didn't just simplify photography, he severed the customer from the chemistry entirely, and that is the real genius. Think about what this meant economically. Kodak controlled film production, chemical emulsions, paper manufacturing, development laboratories, printing, reloading, distribution. The customer was not buying a camera. They were entering a service loop. Every finished roll required mailing. Every mailing generated development revenue. Every development generated print revenue. Every reload meant another 100 exposures. This wasn't just razor and blade. This was razor, blade, sharpening service, replacement parts, and exclusive supply chain, all owned by one company. Eastman had vertically integrated memory. The mail-back system did three crucial things. 1. It removed fear. 2. It guaranteed recurring revenue. 3. It centralized expertise. By forcing the entire camera to return to Rochester, Kodak ensured every photograph was developed in-house. Every customer interaction passed through Kodak infrastructure. Every print reinforced brand loyalty. You couldn't take your film elsewhere. You didn't even handle it. Kodak became the invisible processor of your life. Your wedding passed through Rochester. Your child's first steps passed through Rochester. Your vacation sunset passed through Rochester. Memory became industrial. By 1900, the system evolved. Eastman no longer needed to require full camera returns. Film rolls could be replaced separately, but the infrastructure remained centralized. And then came the Brownie. Price? $1. Cardboard body. Simple lens. Marketed toward children. Not because children had purchasing power, but because children create moments, and children create habits. Within 5 years, millions were sold. Now the razor and blade model accelerated. Cheap camera, high margin film, high margin processing, high margin prints. Film margins reached 70–80%. One Kodak executive decades later would say it's hard to find anything legal that's as profitable as selling film. Why? Because film was consumable memory. You ran out, you bought more, you never stopped living. And as long as you kept living, you kept buying film. Kodak did something subtle. It didn't sell hardware. It sold continuity. When your camera returned from Rochester with glossy prints inside, the experience felt magical. You had mailed a box. It came back filled with preserved time. Trust deepened. Habit formed. Brand loyalty hardened. Kodak was not competing on price. It was competing on ritual. And rituals are sticky. Once you associate a brand with your wedding, your newborn, your parents aging, your first home, switching brands feels like betrayal. Kodak was not just a supplier, it was the archivist of your life. By centralizing processing, Kodak built massive labs, chemical production plants, paper mills, distribution networks. Competitors could copy cameras, but copying the infrastructure was nearly impossible. That's why Kodak achieved 85% of the US camera market and 90% of the film market by the 70s. It wasn't just product dominance, it was systemic dominance. The moat wasn't the camera, the moat was the processing network, and the margins were protected by complexity. Here is the quiet irony. The same closed-loop system that made Kodak untouchable would later make it inflexible. Because once your profit depends on film production, chemical processing, physical development labs, paper printing, you do not welcome a technology that requires none of those things. Digital photography eliminated film, chemicals, mailing, processing labs, paper. Digital destroyed the loop, and the loop was Kodak's empire. In the 20th century, Kodak did something even more subtle. It redefined emotional language. The phrase Kodak moment entered culture. It meant a memory worth keeping, a moment too precious to lose. Weddings, first steps, graduations, returning soldiers. Kodak's advertisements did not focus on chemistry. They focused on feeling. They were selling reassurance, the reassurance that time could be paused, that memory could survive mortality. This emotional positioning was as powerful as the chemistry itself. Kodak did not just dominate shelves, it dominated psychology. By the 1930s, Kodak was enormous. By the 1950s, it was industrially dominant. By the 1970s, it was a sovereign ecosystem. Let's understand what that meant. Kodak owned coal mines to power its plants, factories processing cow bones and hooves to extract gelatin for film emulsions, massive chemical plants refining silver nitrate and light-sensitive compounds, its own railroad to move materials between facilities, its own fire department, and at its Rochester headquarters, a 3B uranium nuclear reactor. Yes, a photography company operating a nuclear reactor. Why? Materials research, advanced imaging science, chemical experimentation. The scale of Kodak's R&D competed government agencies, 188,000 employees globally. Entire towns in US depended on Kodak payroll. Rochester was Kodak. Kodak was Rochester. The company was not simply profitable, it was untouchable. And when something feels untouchable, it becomes vulnerable. Inside Kodak's research lab in 1975, a young engineer named Steven Sasson built something strange. It weighed 8 pounds. It recorded images at 100 by 100 pixels. It took 23 seconds to capture a single image. It stored the data on a cassette tape. It was crude, but it worked. It was the first digital camera. Sasson demonstrated it to executives. They were intrigued. They asked intelligent questions. Internal studies confirmed something unsettling. Digital photography would eventually replace film. Eventually. They estimated they had perhaps 10 years before serious disruption. 10 years felt comfortable. But there was a problem. Digital required no film, and film generated nearly 80% margins. Digital cameras might generate 5%. Digital would cannibalize the most profitable product in the company's history. And so hesitation entered the room. Not denial, not ignorance, fear. Kodak's failure was not technological. It was organizational. Middle managers were compensated based on film revenue. Executives were accountable to quarterly profits. Wall Street valued consistency. Digital was uncertain. Film was predictable. In 1988, Kodak acquired Sterling Drugs for $5.1 billion. The logic, chemistry expertise would translate. It did not. They later sold it at a significant loss. In 1989, when choosing a new CEO, the board selected K.R. Whitmore, a traditionalist, over digital advocate Phil Samper. Whitmore promised stability. Digital research continued, but cautiously, incrementally, never aggressively enough to disrupt the core. In 1996, Kodak launched Advantix film, an improved version of an aging product. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley accelerated. By 2001, Kodak acquired Ophoto, a photo-sharing site, but leadership saw it only as a funnel for printing services. They failed to recognize that digital photography was becoming social, not physical. They missed the opportunity to become Instagram before Instagram existed. Slowness is rarely dramatic. It is gradual, and gradual mistakes compound. By 2003, digital photography surpassed film. By 2005, Kodak briefly led US digital camera sales, but it was losing money on many units. The razor blade model no longer worked. Consumers did not want to print digital photos. They wanted to share them. On January 19, 2012, Kodak filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, $6.75 billion in liabilities, $4.1 billion eliminated during restructuring. Patents sold for $527 million, far less than expected. The UK Kodak pension plan absorbed imaging assets to settle $2.8 billion in obligations. Shareholders received almost nothing. After 19 months, Kodak emerged smaller, stripped alive, but no longer sovereign. In 2018, during the cryptocurrency boom, Kodak announced Kodak Coin, a digital token for photographers. The stock surged 120% in a single day. Media mocked it. The momentum faded. Then, in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Kodak announced a $765 million US government loan to manufacture pharmaceutical ingredients. The stock jumped from roughly $3 to nearly $60. But regulators noticed something. Just before the announcement, Kodak had granted stock options to executives. The timing allowed insiders to purchase shares at low prices. Before the surge, allegations of insider advantage surfaced. The SEC launched investigations focused specifically on the pharmaceutical loan and executive stock options. Kodak admitted it had failed to properly embargo the press release, allowing early reporting that affected trading volume. An internal review later concluded executives did not violate securities laws. The SEC investigation remained ongoing. The company that once symbolized stability now symbolized volatility. Harvard professor Clayton Christensen gave this phenomenon a name: the innovator's dilemma. When a company's success depends on one model, it resists replacing that model. Film was comfort. Film was margin. Film was identity. Digital was uncertain, disruptive, lower margin. Leadership did not lack intelligence. They lacked structural permission to cannibalize themselves. And hesitation in technology compounds exponentially. There is something important about George Eastman that often gets reduced to a footnote. He was not only a chemist, he was not only an industrialist, he was not only a founder, he was a man obsessed with control, and that obsession shaped both his empire and his ending. The discipline of routine. George Eastman lived with extraordinary structure. He rose early. He worked methodically. He reviewed financial reports with microscopic attention. He believed in systems, not inspiration. He had grown up watching security vanish. He would not allow chaos into his adult life. Even his philanthropy was systematized, quiet, strategic, calculated. George Eastman became one of the most generous philanthropists in American history, but he did not want applause. He donated anonymously under the name Mr. Smith. He gave tens of millions of dollars at a time when $1 million was extraordinary. His support of historically black institutions was significant and unusually progressive for his era. His contributions to MIT alone exceeded $20 million, an astonishing amount in the early 20th century. When MIT finally learned that Mr. Smith was George Eastman, it reshaped their future. Laboratories were built, scholarships were funded, research was expanded. Eastman believed education created stability, and stability to him was sacred. One of his deepest passions was music. He founded the Eastman School of Music in 1921. He funded the Eastman Theater. He believed music refined civilization. He once said, "It is the duty of the man of wealth to give back." But he did not frame philanthropy emotionally. He framed it practically. He had accumulated. Therefore, he must redistribute. He kept his private life extremely private. He never married. There were rumors of romantic interests, none confirmed. He guarded his interior world as fiercely as he guarded his financial reports. Even in leisure, there was control. Even in generosity, there was system. In his late 70s, Eastman developed severe spinal stenosis, a degenerative condition, chronic pain, limited mobility. The man who built systems now experienced physical decline he could not control. Doctors offered limited relief. The pain worsened. He had watched his mother suffer long illness before death. He feared prolonged deterioration, loss of autonomy, loss of a dignity. And remember, control was everything. Eastman was 77 years old. He put his affairs in order meticulously, signed documents, finalized arrangements. Then in March 14, 1932, he wrote a short note. It read, "To my friends, my work is done. Why wait?" 3 sentences, no drama, no apology. He placed the note on his desk and shot himself in the heart. Clean, decisive, controlled. My work is done. This is not a sentence of despair. It is a sentence of completion. Eastman believed in purpose. He believed life was functional. And when function ended, waiting was inefficient. The boy who feared instability had built an empire to eliminate chaos. The old man who feared decline eliminated uncertainty one final time. His death shocked the nation. But those who knew him understood something. He had lived on his terms. He intended to live the same way. Now, when we return to 1975, when Steven Sasson holds up that crude digital prototype, when executives calculate margin erosion, when the board chooses stability over reinvention, it is no longer just a business mistake. It is a psychological inheritance. Kodak did not simply defend film, it defended certainty. Kodak never sold cameras. It sold reassurance. The reassurance that time could be held, that memory could resist erasure. George Eastman built an empire to prevent instability. He gave away fortunes to build institutions that would outlive him. He left the world on his own terms. And yet, time moved forward anyway. Technology shifted, formats changed, empires shrank, but the desire to remember never disappeared. We still press the button. We still frame the moment. We still try to trap time. And somewhere in every image, there is a faint echo of a man who sat at his mother's kitchen table, mixing chemicals in the dark, trying to make the world feel less fragile. This was Darkroom Diaries. Stay slow.